I think some of the weakest, most shallow, vacuous, disingenuous people I've ever had the misfortune to meet have been in sport. And I love those people. I love those people because they don't know what they're talking about. I dared to not be a celebrating Newcastle fan this week and get pile on from people saying that I'm a miserable sod and I should stay away from talking about football because I didn't happen to agree with their point of view. Here and now. That's the nature of the beast. And Liverpool have won one Premier League in 32 years.
Well, exactly.
Just saying.
Thank you so much. At this stage, Simon and I will focus our attention on what is going on in this international break at Chelsea. Chelsea. What have they been up to? Chelsea have completed the double signing of Sporting Lisbon midfielders Giovanni Quenda and Dario Isugo. Wait for it. For a combined fee of around £62.4 million. Quenda is 17. He'll join Chelsea for a fee of up to 44 million quid, but he'll remain in Lisbon until the end of the 25-26 season. He's broken into Sporting's first team this season, and he made his Champions League debut in September. But he's a kid. He's 17. 44 million. Isugo, on the other hand, is 20, a defensive midfielder who will move to Chelsea in the summer following a loan spell at Las Palmas. Sporting announced his transfer fee as £18.4 million. What is this, Simon, if it's not high risk, high reward? Are they gambling because, in the sense that they don't know how these kids will turn out?
Okay, so when Man United paid £12 million for Ronaldo in 2002, and look at the scale of revenues that we're now talking about. We're now talking about the distributions in the Premier League have gone up 4 or 5 times in terms of quantum. So United are now getting 150, 160 million pounds a year rather than 30, 40 they were getting there. Isn't it just relative? Isn't it just a relative transaction based upon the times?
How many 17-year-olds do you know who command a fee of up to 44?
I just gave you one. 12 million quid in 2002, comparable to what we're spending in the marketplace now, is probably about the same.
So you're saying it's inflation?
I'm saying it's the nature of the beast. We've got 5 times more revenue coming into football, so why shouldn't transfer fees go 5 times? And by the way, what's the key terminology? Up to £44 million. So it may well be £20 million down payment. It may well be another £25 million based upon playing 50 games in the Premier League. Are you telling me that a player that can play 50 games in the Premier League wouldn't now be being priced at somewhere in the region of about 40, 50 million quid? Because I would say it was. So I think it's reflective of the nature of talent. Exceptional talent creates exceptional outcomes. Is it a palatable perspective? No. But is paying £100 million for Jack Grealish a palatable perspective?
So, from a buyer's and a seller's perspective, how do you put a price on potential?
The same way you did when you bought Ronaldo. The same way you do when you buy any player that's 21 years of age. When they bought Wayne Rooney.
How did you do it?
Well, you base it upon the fact that you're buying someone that, A, you've got enough football intelligence around to suggest that you can see the trajectory of their travel.
Right, they might come good.
Well, the talent will be there. More often than not, it's not about the talent, it's about how they apply themselves to the culture of the player. If you've done what you should do, which is do all of your diligence as much as you can with a young kid, no one would have known. At £12 million for Ronaldo when he was 17 years of age, coming on 18 when United signed him, right? So at that point, despite the fact he was a very talented player, we were dealing in potential. £12 million for a footballer in 2002 would have been considered a lot of money for a 17, 18-year-old footballer. In today's money, that's probably 44 million quid, given the nature of the inflation of the broadcast rights. So here we are.
But here's the thing: if this was the Saudis coming in with 44 million for 17-year-old Quenda, is that not skewing the market in your eyes?
No,
that's what you would say.
I think the Saudis can do what they want, and the more dross we want to farm off over to Saudi at twice the price, the better it is for certain football clubs that need to clear their decks. Look, the Saudis will do what they do. I don't have a view on it. I think that there is a balance between what people are prepared to pay and what the market will demand. People make the argument, and sometimes it's a relatively coherent one. The people that make it have never been in a position of great wealth, never done a deal of great significance, don't know what they're talking about half the time, but can tell Todd Bowley, who's a billionaire, that he shouldn't have bought Fernandes for 105 million quid and that he was bidding against himself. And I love those people. I love those people because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what it takes to do a deal, but they've got a bloody opinion on how a billionaire should be doing. He's a billionaire for a reason.
I get that.
And it doesn't tend to be because they're stupid.
I mean, it was relatively recently that he pitched up at the Financial Times Business Summit, Todd Bowley, and he spoke then about the ownership's approach.
The most misunderstood thing is that we're thinking about it as measured in years, you've got to think both short and long term. But I think that we're focused on really the combination of both of them and seeking the best possible way to execute on that. And that it's a balancing act in order to figure out how to do it. And there's no, it's like, strikers are hard to find, right? You don't go into the grocery store and like, I'm going to get a striker. It's an amazing skill set, and and then you also have to have a fantastic mentality. So it's hard to come by.
I mean, unless of course you're Newcastle, you can go buy Alexander Isak.
Yeah, well. Right. What we do know is they're not stopping at Quenda and Isugo.
No,
because
I thought they were skint, couldn't meet financial fair play.
Well, exactly.
Just saying.
They
might be in a different budget.
They've recently confirmed moves for 2 other 17-year-olds this summer, Estevo Willian and the Ecuadorian kid Kendry Páez.
It'd be interesting to see if this fall within the confines of their academy and ultimately doesn't get qualified in their budgets for PSR. Sorry,
yes.
PSR. It may well be because they can spend this kind of money in their academy, and it's moved away from the budgets in the PSR governance. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. It might be.
That said, but that's what they're doing. That's the direction they're going in.
What's wrong with
Kids for whopping great fees. And John Terry in here yesterday said he believes Chelsea could still be 3 to 5 years away from winning the Premier League. Yeah. The club's moving in the right direction, but 3 to 5 years. So if we're talking about another half decade, I mean,
you can follow Man United then, can't you?
The top clubs want to win the Premier League yesterday.
Sure they do.
And if not yesterday, today.
Sure, but they don't, do they? How many winners of the Premier League have there been? 7. So there's only a few clubs that win it.
Yeah, but do you think Maresca will get 5 years?
No, but that's incidental. Maresca is an incidental. He's a manager at the time, and he'll do the job or he won't do the job. He'll be part of the curve. The thing about the Americans is they view it very much like they view their franchise sports in America. They know that it's a long game play here. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys once upon a time were the most successful team in American NFL football. They're not now, but they still command the most revenues. Yeah. There's a part of this that the Americans are looking at, and Bowley will suggest in a certain way that, like he said, 3 years is a blink of an eyelid in people's lifetimes, so people get on with the reality of what I'm building because it will get to where I need to get to.
Right.
What he underestimates is the culture of football in this country. He underestimates. No one's interested in what's going to happen tomorrow. They're only interested in what happens now. And that is, I understand it and subscribe to that view, but there is also a more realistic position where ultimately it takes time to get the foundations set. And other people along the line, sniping away at what people do and don't do, are judging it in the here and now. And that's the nature of the beast that we're in. That's the animal that we are. But the reality of it is if you're building a business and you want to change the direction of it for a variety of different reasons, one of them being your own motivation to make it more valuable in the longer game, you will do it the way you want to do it. And Todd Bowley and the other fella, Egbali, will run it the way they want. Maybe they'll not run it together. Because maybe they're another example of red ants and black ants running something, and maybe there will be a parting of the ways in that respect. But there's no doubt in my mind that Chelsea will get themselves back to a level of extreme competitivity for the Premier League.
You said they'd be challenging this season.
I did. No, I said
21 points behind Liverpool.
I said they'll be challenging. I didn't say they're going to win the league. My view was they're getting to the Champions.
What does challenging mean?
Challenging. They're in amongst the challenges.
Hanging about.
If you're challenging for something, you're moving towards an opportunity to be bigger and better and get closer and closer. I never said win. I said they'll get into the Champions League spots.
It's just that
which is what they'll do. If they don't, then you can pull me up about it.
Liverpool have won 7 more games than Chelsea.
Yeah, and Liverpool have won 1 Premier League in 32 years. Here and now. Here and now. Yeah. Here and now.
Thank you so much. Thomas Tuchel takes charge of England for the first time. They're up against Albania and they're up against Latvia. Begs the question, how is Gareth Southgate these days? Sir Gareth Southgate. I'll tell you how he is. He's out and about. He's been giving a keynote speech at the Richard Dimbleby Lecture. That's an event held since 1972. Even you haven't done that, Simon. Those who have include King Charles III and Bill Gates, no less. Let's dip into Gareth and what he said.
As real-world communities and mentorship declines, young men end up withdrawing, reluctant to talk or express their emotions. They spend more time online searching for direction and are falling into unhealthy alternatives like gaming, gambling and pornography. We need leaders to set the right tone, to be the role models we want for our young men. We have to show young men that character is more important than status, that how you treat others is more important than how much money you make, that values matter, courage, humility, and integrity over selfishness, greed, arrogance. The culture we create today will shape the kind of men that we inherit tomorrow.
So that was just a small segment of Gareth's address on that occasion at the Richard Dimbleby Lecture. His talk, Simon, focused on the importance of belief and resilience for young men, and he cited 3 things needed to build these: identity, connection, and culture. What's your take on him standing up like that and imparting his words to,
well, why not?
To a gathering like that?
Why not? I mean, Gareth Southgate undoubtedly is a thoroughly decent fellow. Has had a significant career, you know, as a footballer that played for his country, that's gone on to manage his national side. Whether we differ on his achievements doesn't alter the parameters of the environments he's been in. I think what he's saying has real resonance. I think we're in an age where young men are being diminished in certain ways, and challenged as a result of certain societal challenges that they face as a result of behavioural patterns that have gone in the past, and young men of this age are finding some blowback from that. Misogyny seems to be the conversation that's thrown around, young men having to go into schools and apologise for things they haven't done. So I think there's lots about what Gareth has said which is right. I think the parental values of society, the standards of society are diminishing. We see the breakup of the family, which then takes the responsibility. I never liked the idea of role models. Me growing up as a kid didn't have role models. I didn't look at someone saying, I can be that because that's what they do. But that's me. Lots of people do see that. They do believe that if you can see it, you can be it. I didn't have that in my life. I felt the necessity. My father was a role model for me.
Yeah.
And so parents, and if you're not in that situation where you have active parenting or parents that are part of lots of families are breaking up these days, so the father's role is becoming more and more distant, which is a sad indication. I think there's nothing wrong with Gareth Southgate imparting this sort of wisdom.
Yeah,
he's right. People will talk about the Andrew Tate phenomenon and some of the messages that he imparts that are challenging to certain aspects of society. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong, like everything in life. And I think there's nothing wrong with a former England manager that people put on pedestals, addressing the issues about what kind of society we want, what kind of young men we want.
Yeah.
And I suspect that if say Serena Wegman was addressing an audience of young girls, she could address that. I hope that people don't start saying, well, why wasn't he addressing young girls as well? Because he was talking to young men in this conversation.
I think you're right. For young men, though, is sports still the right place to look for role models?
Why not?
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because we see the major component part of sport now is finance. The players are paid so well. Their lifestyles are so removed from most people, and it creates an image. The Instagram generation, the social media generation, when we grew up, we heard about these places that you would go to with these wonderful restaurants in town or these wonderful hotels. Now you see them on live images of people streaming their so-called best version of their lives, whether they're idiot influencers that have really nothing to say, that are getting paid fortunes for doing nothing, but portraying their best versions of themselves, which really isn't their life at all.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is people buy into it. I think there's a lot in what Gareth says that's absolutely right, and he's well placed to say it. And if people respond, a section of the audience responds to Gareth Southgate because they admire Gareth Southgate, then why wouldn't Gareth Southgate be the right person to impart it? Sports is put on a pedestal. I don't think it merits. I think some of the weakest, most shallow, vacuous, disingenuous people I've ever had the misfortune to meet have been in sport. And I think they get lionised beyond their achievements at times, but also people overcoming adversity. Sports is a measurement of overcoming adversity, galvanising people's spirits. and people are considered to be indomitable. That's why when you hear people that suffer from an illness in sport, or whether it's a mental health care issue or whether it's a physical illness, and they talk about it, people listen to it more and think that, well, these guys shouldn't suffer from that because they're indomitable spirits. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Gareth has said, and I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be the person to impart it. And if you don't like Gareth Southgate and you don't respect him, then you wouldn't listen to him anyway.
Absolutely.
Not that there's any reason to dislike Gareth Southgate. You might dislike some of the achievements or the style of his football match.
A great fella. The thing about Gareth is, you ask him a question, he'll give you an answer. There's nothing is out of bounds. And and that was the case when he was in here. You weren't in that day.
No, I was not.
How did he wish to be remembered? There was a danger if he didn't win a major tournament, he may be in the territory of being remembered as a glorious failure.
He was very clever,
and he didn't fudge it.
No, he was very clever. He cultivated the question to be: if you only judge things in the realms of winning, then ultimately I have to be a winner. Well, yes, Gareth, you do.
Yeah. Well done, Gareth. After delivering that keynote speech at the Richard Dimbleby lecture, you've still to be asked by them to go along to that.
Indeed.
And on the night you are, I'll be in the audience. It's another episode of Simon, myself and Spencer Oliver talking about big stories in the world of boxing. Today is no different. And of course, we're all thinking and wondering what is next for Daniel Dubois, who did such a demolition job at Wembley on Anthony Joshua. Well, we knew what was next. He was going to head to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to fight Joseph Parker, but it didn't happen because Daniel was forced to pull out, and he and presumably his trainer Don Charles had to fly home early. And now we're wondering how Daniel is and what's next for him. Well, we don't have Daniel, but we have the next best thing, because Daniel's trainer Don Charles has kindly joined us here in studio. Mr. Charles, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you and your listeners, Simon, Spencer. Good afternoon.
Good to see you, Don. We've never really heard what actually happened on the night. Daniel couldn't fight, and of course the news came through to us, the fight's off. Now we'll talk about the replacement, and boy, it was a late replacement in Martin Bakole in a moment, who went in and was dispatched by Parker. But relive it for us, Don, can you? What happened with Daniel out there?
Well, as you know, we went to Riyadh 8 days prior to the fight, and our routine is we train every day, like every boxer. It's the last week of the campaign, so you streamline your training to a mere 45 minutes. The intensity has to be reduced drastically because it's fight week. We were allocated the time of 4 p.m. Riyadh time every day, from Monday to Thursday. We did Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday successfully, Thursday being the last training session planned before the fight. And my team, very well drilled team, we all came down to the foyer at the reception of the hotel on Thursday. We get picked up around between 3:20 and 3:30 because it takes 20 minutes to get driven to the Mike Tyson gym. Anyway, we were all assembled by the reception, and I got a phone call from Daniel's father saying, can I come up for a moment? I thought, something is up, because Daniel generally joins us down, so he joins the team, and he's always meticulous he's always punctual for his timing. He never came down.
Sure.
The father called me to come upstairs. I went upstairs. He said, Dan's not well. I said, he's not feeling well. I thought, okay. I thought at that moment when he said that to me, I thought, we don't have to train today. So my thoughts at that point was, okay, lay him off training today, which would have been a Thursday, and Friday, a couple of days of not training should be able to. That's my initial thought.
Right.
Then when I got up there, it turns out we called Frank first and foremost. Once it was ascertained he's not feeling well. How bad is it? We don't know till the Frank recommended sent a doctor. It was a Riyadh seasoned doctor who initially attended, examined Daniel. From his findings, he said, look, he's coming down with something. He's in his system, and swollen glands is the most evident by his throat, internally and externally.
So you thought then,
well, still no decision had been made at this point. He got examined by the first doctor, a Riyadh seasoned doctor. He left some tablets, prescription, which when the second doctor turned up from the British Boxing Board of Control, okay? He turned up 20 minutes or so later after the first doctor. Again, he did a blood prick to Daniel's finger to take blood, urine sample, and the results were instantaneous. Within 10 minutes, you get the results. And again, he, remember, he didn't consult the first doctor of his findings. Independently, he said, look, from what I can see, he checked his ears. He asked me when was the last time Daniel sparred. I said, 12 days prior to going to Riyadh, because he said there was some redness inside his eardrums. I said, okay, sir. He said, look, based on my findings, I recommend, use the word recommend, I recommend he doesn't fight in 48 hours time. And it's like, whoa. He said recommend, he didn't say don't fight. He said, I recommend.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Daniel turned around instantaneously, said to me, Coach, I want to fight. I said, whoa, hold on. I called his father straight away. His father was upstairs in the father's room. So the father made his way down, sat down. I said, the doctor was still present when Daniel's father came down. The doctor reiterated what he said, I don't recommend he fights based on what he has seen. And then it was up to us then to make a call of what to do. And the shock and the panic in the sense that, hold on a minute, we're here. We've done everything. The fighter wants to fight, but he's not well. And when doctors, 2 independent doctors, said, we recommend he doesn't fight. Okay, so we had to make a call. So the next thing was we called Frank Warren. The father got on the phone to Frank Warren. I could hear what was being said. And we told Frank what's happened. Frank said, well, straight away, he said, he's not fighting. Okay?
And this all happened very rapidly, Don, didn't it? We saw him at the open workout and he looked fantastic.
Well, I'm sure he looked fantastic.
And on the Thursday, because we were out there with you, you were meant to come and see us.
And I actually arranged to meet you at the gym.
Yeah, that's right.
You were at the gym waiting for me.
At the Tyson gym.
Yes. Okay, I preempted. Why would I not? We're going to do our routine.
It must have been one hell of an anticlimax.
Well,
you're like, God, that's it then.
So Frank Warren, myself, the father, Frank Warren, we decided to pull him out of the fight if he's not well.
No, sure. And that was it. Did you spend another couple of days in Riyadh? Or you just
Daniel flew the next day. This happened on a Thursday.
Right.
I believe.
Friday.
Don't quote me. I believe he flew on Friday.
Right.
Okay. Because the doctor said that with this from his findings, and we've experienced it before, that it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
There's a history of that, Don, isn't there?
There is.
With Daniel before.
This is the third time it's happened since I've been training Dan in three.
What did you make of the decision, Don, when you heard that, okay, in steps Martin Bakole, flying all the way from the Congo via somewhere else? I remember hearing about the route and I thought, my God, how on earth is he going to be up to it when he arrives in Riyadh, pulls on his shorts and gloves and goes in against Joseph Parker? And we saw what happened. He got demolished.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of it is that he wasn't in the gym. According to, it's well documented, he said he hadn't been in the gym. And it's a decision him and his trainer had to make.
Would you have done it, Don?
No, hell no.
No, you would not.
Categorically.
No, so because Billy Nelson took the opportunity. He hasn't fought for 8 months.
Yeah.
It wasn't conditioned, wasn't in the right space. So you're saying if the roles are reversed and it was put upon you for Daniel, and Daniel said, I'd like that fight, you'd be in the camp of saying,
why would
I don't think we should be taking this.
Why would you? I know there's the monetary aspect. Yeah. Why would you? The same, look, each to their own. We made a decision to pull our fighter out of a situation. Yeah, potentially.
Which was the right decision.
Yeah. In my opinion, it was. Yeah. It was Billy Nelson's decision to take.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a hypocrite. I can't condemn what he's done.
No, I'm not asking
you. Asking me, would I?
You're
asking me. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have taken it. Yeah.
So now we're talking about Usyk versus Parker, or Usyk versus Daniel Dubois. Who should get the nod? Who should win it? Who should get the nod?
I'm not a governing body. Obviously Daniel's my guy. I'm not a governing body.
Have you heard anything?
You hear speculations, that's all. It's Word documents all over the internet. You know, what you've heard is what I've heard.
Yeah.
And what you've read is what I've read.
And funnily enough, Parker, for his part, has jumped in, having demolished Bakole. He's sending out his own message, as only he can do, to Alexander Usyk.
Looks like we made it. Look how far we've come, my baby. We might have took the long way. We knew.
Now, for those who are listening but can't see it, it's going out live at the moment on YouTube. You've got Joseph Parker walking down a beach, and they're cutting in some pictures of Joseph and Alexander Usyk pictured together. So obviously, Joseph is sending out a message. Come on, Alexander, let's get it on as only he can do. This is his theme done. This is what he does. It's thoroughly tongue-in-cheek, but Parker's trying to grab the moment.
Correct. And why not, says Barry Norman, the late Barry Norman. Why not indeed? Right? So, yeah, why not? He's trying to get a fight. And why not? Yeah. You know, we're in show business. It's a show business. No offense taken.
Yeah, but you will have a view. You must have a view. You can be diplomatic about it. You're not the governing body, but you must have a view as to where Daniel should fight next. And ultimately, Usyk is the prize. Usyk is the one that Daniel wants. He wants to avenge that defeat.
Correct.
So you must believe that the next fight should be Daniel versus Usyk.
Yes, it should be. We, for a number of reasons, we hold the other chip.
Yeah.
If this was a casino, I don't actually gamble, but I understand the logic. We've got the other chip.
And you must
makes
remember,
up the jigsaw.
You must remember as well, Joseph Parker was actually a voluntary there for Daniel Dubois. So when that fight fell through, people have got to understand, why does he deserve the chance against Alexander Usyk when the champion who fell ill would obviously Usyk's that's the fight that wants to be made because we want to get the belts back together again. So Parker, as unfortunate as it is, and you know he still got the victory and he got the payday, but he was a voluntary, and that's where we're at with it.
No, what I'm saying, right, people are missing a lot of points here. It's almost everyone's feeling sorry for Parker, yeah? And I've been in the same situation. I don't believe anyone felt sorry for myself or my fighter. This is going back in 2010. I said it previously, that when these things happen, it was a voluntary. We volunteered to fight Parker. Parker also, in most cases, he wouldn't have had a fight that night because of the shortness of trying to find a suitable opponent.
Replacement.
He wouldn't have had a fight. Yeah. So then that's a different conversation.
How disruptive is it for Daniel? Because he won't fight now, probably for another 2 or 3 months. Then it means he will have been out of the ring for the best part of 10 months. Yeah. How disruptive is that for him?
He's disruptive, but we can manage it. He's a young man, and he's also a guy who's always in the gym. Okay, there's things you have to do in between, and he's been very active prior to this. He's been fighting back-to-back camp by camp, which is another thing we've got to look at, because this could be what's been bringing on this swollen gland.
Problem.
It could be.
The problem.
So we're really going to research to see something is obviously causing it.
North of the border, Rangers have called out a section of their own fan base following a UEFA disciplinary charge for fan behaviour and the raising of a banner during the Europa League tie against Mourinho's Fenerbahce at Ibrox last week. You remember it went to penalties. Rangers won in the penalty shootout. Mourinho and Fenerbahce went home, and Rangers progressed. That's only part of the story. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the banners. The banner read, "Keep woke foreign ideologies out. Defend Europe." And it was raised in the section that is known to be populated by the so-called Union Bears, who are ultras, if you like. UEFA have decided that the banners were racist and or discriminatory, and the club has been charged with the throwing of missiles and passageways being blocked inside the stadium as well. So if that wasn't enough, if the banners weren't enough, there was throwing of missiles and the passageways were blocked inside the stadium. Rangers have responded by insisting it is deeply saddening and frankly embarrassing that a small minority had tarnished the club. So it's going to cost Rangers. They're going to be hit in the pocket, not for the first time, by UEFA, who didn't like what they saw on the night. UEFA would have observers inside Ibrox Stadium, and they didn't like it, and they will hit them with a fine of some sort. Now, Rangers came out of the stadium late yesterday, but for once, they've gone for those very fans. Because of the charge that's been brought against them, Rangers have decided to come out punching. This charge will bring consequences for the club, says the club. Well, the club is also working to identify those responsible and will ensure they also face consequences. But for the avoidance of doubt, if you don't believe in 2025 that absolutely everyone is welcome to follow Rangers, whether at Ibrox or away, then Rangers is not the club for you. And you should disassociate yourself with the club immediately. So, in other words, if you're going to behave like that and display banners like that, then you're not welcome, and stay away. Extreme fans, ultras or not, don't come near us, and I like that. Simon, ultras, what are they? A valued group of fans who create noise and vibrancy, or an entitled collection of people who bring more trouble than it's worth?
My nose tells me that the modern day version of ultras is bordering upon the territory of being more trouble than they're worth. Not because I want to alight upon the fact that fans don't have the right to be invested and to be committed and to live their lives vicariously through their clubs, but because it would appear to me that the balance of evidence suggests that they cause more aggravation in their various incarnations than perhaps they should either be entitled to do or believe they have the ability to be able to do. I have to say, I don't think that the messaging that some of the missile throwing, the pyrotechnics, non-negotiable, and they should be consequenced for that.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not suggesting they should be able to put these banners up because we are at the end of the day at a football match. I'm not entirely sure that not wanting overseas ideologies and to defend Europe is particularly racist.
Oh, can you tell me what that means? Keep woke foreign ideologies out, defend Europe.
It's not, ideologies are a belief system, not necessarily an individual set of people. If you have different values in different countries that are not akin with this country, well, I don't know what... People have different ideologies. Some people believe in one thing, other people believe in another.
Yeah.
I don't think it's particularly racist to suggest that overseas ideologies that don't sit well with the belief system in this country is something that you should be able to push back against. Now, whether you should do that at a football match via a banner, fine, I get that point. But to then extrapolate everything up to some form of racism, I sit uncomfortably with. But I do understand...
It's discriminatory, though, isn't it?
Well, what to say? Keep foreign ideologies out?
They're targeting a certain group of people.
Well, OK, with due respect, there's an ideology in the Gulf states that homosexuality is illegal. So would we embrace that particular ideology in this country then?
No, but you always say sport is for sport. The sporting arena is for the sport that it's
I hear that, but
pushing.
with due respect, I'm talking about the participants of the sport and the sport in of itself. Football fans are individuals of their own rights. They can formulate their own opinions. Whether they should do it inside a football stadium is an entirely different debate. My argument is about the sport itself.
Yeah.
And so the arguments are two different things.
This is pushing something though, Simon. If you allow this, you'll allow another banner to push that, and this banner will push X and Y.
I agree. Not everything in life is a slippery slope, though. There is a propensity within the confines of the media engine to suggest if someone does this, it's a slippery slope to that. It isn't always. But I do agree in principle that there's no necessity for it.
Right.
And it shouldn't necessarily be there because people, in the same way that I don't really think is a necessity to be able to wave rainbow flags at a football match when you're going to support a team, it then must be by extension not necessarily relevant to do this. But when people make it an accusation about a specific set of thinking, that's where I become slightly troubled by it and say, well, I don't think it's racist. I think it's inappropriate and not necessary at a football match. But to suggest that certain ideologies in other parts of the world should be kept out of Britain, I think to some extent has some validity.
Yeah.
Not at a football match, though,
not
perhaps.
at a football match. Yeah. So, ultras, sum it up for me. Are they more trouble than they're worth? You began by saying, I'm thinking yes, they are.
I think so, because whilst I'm all for the passionate, committed fan that wants to get everybody motivated for the right reasons, and every now and again you'll have leaders of those particular factions that it seems to be conducting the chorus, right, whatever else. And I saw an element of that at the Rangers game, where you've got Rangers game when they played Celtic, when I went up to the Old Firm game, in the corner with the drums and their particular outfit, getting everybody at it. And one person's ultras is another person's set of fervent fans. It's about the individual behaviour within the confines of ultras. We see ultras in Italian football that seem at times to instigate hatred and racism, and also, you know, violence.
Yeah.
You know, we'll quite happily say that's the English disease, but it isn't. It's relevant to all football. So in the instance of judging ultras, I think we've got to judge the ultras in the individual moments that we're talking about. But if we're talking about people that behave badly as ultras, then they must be considered to be more trouble than they're worth. If we're talking about ultras that are fervent fans that live, breathe, eat, slip on whatever else football, then I'm not so sure we should be condemning that.
Why do ultras want to be ultras? What the heck is it all about? They either support the team, like many other people in the same stadium do, or they don't.
But what is okay?
So
what is
why do they want to be known as extreme fans?
But what is a definition of an ultra? I mean, everyone's definition of an ultra might be slightly different.
An extreme fan.
Well, is there such a thing as an extreme fan?
That's my point.
Well, let's get it right. Football is almost up there with religion now. In fact, it probably has more influence than religion because more people follow Ronaldo than they do the Pope.
Right.
So let's have it right when you're talking about social media followers.
Right.
So we're talking about people that are. We want sport to be the emotion-charged environment that it is, because that's what makes it thrive and survive. And then we want people to turn that emotion off and to behave like logical, reasonable people in every other aspect of their participation in the sport. It's unrealistic.
Yeah.
We demand, what we don't demand, it is a tacit expectation that football fans are so committed to their football club. Rational thinking goes out of the window.
Yeah.
I dared to not be a celebrating Newcastle fan this week and get pile-on from people saying that I'm a miserable sod and I should stay away from talking about football because I didn't happen to agree with their point of view. That's the nature of the beast. So we can't condemn it. We can't say people turn up every single week, spend every penny you've got, travel across the country, get up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning to travel from one side of the country to the other to watch a Saturday game, then come back again and do it again on Monday night and say, but actually, do it always in a controlled way that we quite like.
OK, well, Rangers are going to be hitting the pocket of that, there is no doubt, because UEFA are all over them. Because this has come about in the way it has, with the displaying of these banners, and of course they've run into trouble now at the football club because of missiles thrown and passageways blocked. Yeah. They put out a very strong statement, which I would have thought you would back because you're into leadership of the strong variety. Yeah. But where do you stand on this? Are you one of those ultras, whether at Rangers, Celtic or any club in England, these so-called extreme fans? Why do you associate yourself with these groups, and why do you want to be different? Especially when, in Rangers' case, it's going to hit your club in the pocket. Just before we leave the subject of Daniel Dubois, who is Don's fighter, of course, and Don was over in Riyadh. Daniel, unfortunately, due to illness, couldn't fight Joseph Parker. Martin Bakole did and lost. We know all that. A couple of people have got in touch. I don't know if they're cheeky or if they're pushing me to ask you, Don, but I'll ask you anyway. What actually happens in a situation like that? Did you, Don, and more importantly, did Daniel Dubois leave Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with zero payment?
Well, yes, that's widespread. It's not just for this incident. For those who don't know, when a fighter does a camp, especially a camp of this magnitude, you're a world champion training to defend your title, and in this case, the fight didn't happen. The fighter doesn't get paid. No one gets paid. It actually costs the fighter, right, a lot of money to facilitate the camp. For sparring partners, hotels, so it's actually the fighter is out of pocket.
Wow,
quite a substantial amount of money.
Out of pocket,
most definitely.
Having been hoping to go out there and come back majorly financially boosted.
That's the business. You got to speculate to accumulate. So that expenditure is what every fighter lays out. In this case, he didn't fight, so he's out of pocket. I'm not going to disclose the amount.
No, that's
fine. It's quite a large amount of money.
That answers that question. Don, Spencer Simon, so many moving pieces, if you like, in the heavyweight division. It would be wrong today to this hour not mention Anthony Joshua and what may or may not be next for him. Now, Simon Spencer and Adam Smith, top boxing commentator Adam Smith, got into something of an animated debate this week on Talk Boxing, on the Talk Boxing YouTube channel, and of course many of you tune into that, and the three of them went at it, did you not, guys, a bit on the subject of what could be next for Joshua?
Do you think Anthony Joshua is credible now as a challenger for a world title again?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
He's reigned as a champion. He's a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world who's been a poster boy for boxing for many, many years. And he's had a loss to Daniel Dubois, having found a bit of form again. Dubois, brilliant. Let's think about how Dubois took over Wembley that night rather than AJ's defeat. AJ's still a massive name in boxing and definitely deserves
but as
a
a
chance.
force, I'm not talking about his name. I'm not talking about the marketability of it. I was the only person in the room that potentially suggests that I wasn't buying into the fully rehabilitated because of the Jermaine Franklin fight, because of the Robert Helenius fight, because of the Otto Walling fight, and because of the Ngannou fight. I have constantly said the first time he gets hit on the chin by a live one, I think he's going to have a problem.
Right,
and so with that in mind, that's the reasons why I say about the credibility of Anthony Joshua fighting for a world title again, not because of his marketing name. We all accept he's a poster boy.
That full episode is now out on the Top Boxing YouTube channel. It's certainly worth a watch. Where do you stand on it, Simon? I know you were pushing the boys there, but do you still think that AJ deserves to be in the conversation?
If he took the rematch against Daniel Dubois, maybe. But to be orchestrated into an opportunity maybe to fight for another world title on the back of belts being taken away from guys that are winning them, I'm not so sure. I can ask his PR department over there.
Yeah, well, listen, that's the way that it works, isn't it? That's the way the business works, and I think that if Daniel Dubois fights Alexander Usyk, which I do expect next, and we could see that at Wembley. I think that, and the WBO title does become vacant because of that.
They'll make Parker
because of the obligations. They will make Parker versus Anthony Joshua.
But what they should be making,
it's the nature of the beast,
what they should
and
be
that will
making,
happen.
if you're talking about merit rather than historics, they should be making Ajak Kabayel versus Joseph Parker, because Kabayel is the guy that deserves the shot.
Where do you stand on it, Don?
I'm listening to both parties. Spencer's got a point, Simon's got a point. If you look on the business side of it, then it's AJ is boxing. He's made boxing what it's become. He's the money. He brings the money. He puts bums on seats. But if you want to see a real fight, then I'll go with Simon. And Kabayel been silently operating and getting wins that, including me. There's some of the fights he's won, I didn't think he could do them, but he did them in good fashion. So, and he's a silent assassin. He's coming, so he also he doesn't make any noise. If you notice, he deserves also to be in the equation.
I don't know if betting is in the equation more often than not in the world of boxing. Of course, amongst the punters it is, boxing goers it is. Eddie Hearn apparently and Ben Shalom were talking about a potential bet as to regards who would win Eubank Jr. Ben. It wasn't accepted because it couldn't happen. But now the attention has turned further to, will Eddie take on the bet of Chris Eubank Jr., who I think is trying to push Eddie, goad Eddie into betting as to who will win the fight. 1 million quid's worth. Of course, Shalom is the promoter of Eubank Jr. Conor Ben is promoted by Eddie. Do you think we'll see the colour of Eddie's money in this bet, Simon?
Well, Eddie gave it the big one to try and diminish Ben, didn't he? He tried to make Ben look silly by offering him a £1 million bet. And apparently, Eddie doesn't know the governance of his own sport. As a promoter, a licensed promoter, he can't bet. And so, of course, Chris has called him out. And now Eddie, being the master snake oil salesman he is suggesting that it's a conspiracy theory that people want him to take the bet so he can get fined on his licence. Nonsense! He's the one that put the bet up.
Can I throw my 2 pence worth? For the solution here should be they're not allowed to bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Why don't they then do it? Change the word and do it for charity. A charity of your choice.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. A donation, right? Okay,
a donation.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't they choose their own charities who they would like that £1 million to go? That's the way.
I think Eubank would go for that.
I'm
not sure Snake Oil would.
Let's see.
Well, let's put it out there this lunchtime, Eddie.
There's loads of charities out there. There's loads of charities out there that could do with that type of money.
Well done, Don.
Well said, Don.
I can
Good
hear
thinking.
Eddie screeching at the very prospect right now. But are you prepared to do that? $1 million from you. $1 million from you. The proceeds go to
a charitable donation.
A charity of your choice. But it ain't a bet, it's a donation.
Correct.
Eddie,
well done,
are you
Don.
willing to push forward a £1 million donation, potentially? Don Charles, thank you for sorting that out for us.
I'm the referee.
Rangers going to get hit in the pocket by UEFA because in amongst their so-called group of ultras, the Union Bears, in the game against Fenerbahce at Ibrox last week, a game that Rangers won through on in penalties and they lived to fight another day. Mourinho and Fenerbahce went out. That's by the by. That's a football matter, isn't it? The banner that was raised read, "Keep woke foreign ideologies out, defend Europe." Now, UEFA have said, that's either racist and or discriminatory. And now Rangers will be hit in the pocket. They've also been charged with the throwing of missiles and passageways being blocked inside the stadiums. Ultras, more trouble than they're worth. Here's Reese, who's a Forest fan. Reese, good morning. What's your take on it?
Morning, gents. Great show.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you.
My opinion is that football is entwined and is a reflection of the demographic of the UK. So it's hard to manage it, and I don't think Rangers should be the ones who foot the bill for it, to be honest. I'm a Forest fan, and we're told to be loud and proud and represent. And if that is the Rangers feeling, whether it's a sliver of the demographic or not, I don't think Rangers should be held accountable for the opinions of the fans.
Right, but when it comes to the fine, who pays it?
Well, ultimately, Rangers do. But if this was a sign on a street corner in a town centre, I don't think it would cause as much disarray and conversation as it has done at present, to be honest.
To be clear, Reece, do you think it's punishable at all? Is that what you're saying?
There's an element of it that is not wanted within society. Now, the banner itself, if it said after it, it says keep it out. If it said keep it out of football, I would agree with the sentiment. As Simon said, and as yourself has said, there's no necessity for geopolitical opinions or economical opinions within the sport.
Yeah, just in the passing, do Forest have ultras?
We have Forza Garibaldi who do a fantastic job. They do tifos and they support the club. If they was to hold a banner up in this sort of manner, I think I would feel that it doesn't have any reflection on the club and where we're going, and it's not necessarily needed. However, I don't think that the club that I love, should be punished for that.
I see where you're going, Reece. Okay, thank you very much indeed. There's Alan in East Lothian, beautiful part of the world, east of Edinburgh. The working class are increasingly finding opportunities to air their views on societal matters. So why not take the opportunity of a football match with all the publicity that goes with it? I see where you're going with that, Alan. Phil, West Ham fan, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yes, good morning, Jim. Good morning, Simon. I do.
Morning.
And the reason I agree with it is because I don't believe that we get a right sometimes to express ourselves. And I know you can say that we vote and we have this opportunity, etc. But as we know with this government, I think it was 1 in 5 people voted for them. But having the opportunity at a football match, which is a game, I know it's entertainment, like Simon said, but it's a game for the people. Ultimately, it's working class people. Alex Crook's been on your station a few times this week talking about Man United and how it's a working class and don't lose it. But football is a working class game. And sometimes working class people don't feel heard. They don't feel heard. So putting those things out there are what people actually feel. Because if you say anything or you write a letter, they don't get picked up by newspapers. You don't. Your organisation wouldn't listen to someone who had a different view to other than what's apparently woke.
So in your view, Phil, is it okay to hold up a banner which could be construed to be racist and or discriminatory?
It's not racist or discriminatory. It's keep certain behaviours that don't fit in our culture in Europe out of Europe.